Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars.
SoundCartel.
From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. Every big business started as a small business. They're encouraging words from Anne Nalder, CEO of the Small Business Association of Australia. But she also says that there'll be no business at all without sound management. And she's keen to offer advice on how small business owners can up their game. Anne is explaining to Jeff Waters why she thinks small business owners need two personalities.
One is the entrepreneurial one, where they create things, all that sort of thing. The other side is the management side of things. Usually, for many people, very boring, but essential. You don't make money from doing those chores, but it is essential because if your business is badly managed, your business will fail.
And what are the aspects of management that a lot of small businesses fail on, I suppose, for want of a better word?
Well, what we see is as a manager, you have to manage the business and you also manage staff as well if you employ staff. To manage a business, you have to have systems in place, risk management systems. You'd be surprised how many businesses don't have that. And risk management is about all the little nasties that can happen in your business. And what you do is you need to identify the risk, and then you need to make, and you can do this yourself in many cases, then you can prepare a risk management little policy of how you will handle that particular risk. As a manager, you need to make sure that unless there is a person in the accounts section, or that person may actually be under you, it all depends on the setup. You need to make sure that you comply with taxation requirements if that duty falls on you. Make sure that your accounts are paid. Make sure you follow up outstanding accounts. Many small businesses fail to do this. And I've actually spoken to small business owners who feel very uncomfortable with asking to be paid. And I said, no, you should never, ever do that because it's a commercial decision. You are providing a service or you're providing goods or whatever it is, and you have to be paid for that. It's a normal commercial transaction. So to be a good manager, you need to have your systems in place. You need to communicate with your customers. You need to know even customer service, customer relationships. There's a whole lot of things you must do to make that business run efficiently and effectively. And that's what good management will do. A lot has to do, as I said, the size of the business and the role, etc. But usually a manager overall manages the whole lot as a general rule.
Sounds like it could be a little bit overwhelming for a lot of people. Is the level of work for a small business manager or someone's managing a small business, is the level of work increasing?
Oh, yes, most definitely. There's no two ways about it. And when I talk about managing, you might have a small business owner that only has one staff or maybe just no staff. So that person has to be the entrepreneur and the manager. That's a lot of work to do. And I'll tell you what is really unfair. They have to be aware, like, for example, let's say they end up in trouble with the law. And I'll give you an example shortly. You know the old saying, if you go to court, you'll be told there's no excuse for being ignorant of the law. However, that saying was okay years and years ago when you had only one or two laws. But today there's so much to know, it's impossible to know it all. And let me give you an example. One of our members came to me, this is a little while ago, and he had been operating a store for 20 years, no issues, customers, the whole lot. And it was one of those little, like a reject shop type of shop. And he was absolutely upset when he contacted me because he had been fined $5,000, this was in Victoria, for a breach. And that breach was that he had on his receipts no refunds after 7 days. Okay? Now, in my opinion, I don't think that's a hanging offence. Okay, he should have been aware of that, but he wasn't. And he'd been operating for 20 years and he had no complaints and so forth. But how he got caught out was the inspectors were going around from the Justice Department that this comes under, and they found him and they fined him $5,000. That's a huge fine. But let me scare you even further. So I spoke to that department, and I must admit they were very helpful, and, they spoke to me about the matter. And what turns out is that he had a choice. He could either pay that fine or challenge that in the court. But if he took that matter to court, it was not going to be a civil matter, but a criminal matter.
Wow.
That's right. Wow. And I couldn't believe it, because how could you justify that as being a criminal matter? So if he challenged that and lost the case, which he would lose anyhow because he's breached the rule, and if he said, I'm sorry, I didn't know, it probably wouldn't help him one little bit, he would have a criminal record, and that could preclude him from a whole lot of things.
Company directorships, for instance.
Exactly. So the whole thing is, for being in small business, even as a director, and you can be a sole director, it doesn't have to be this big corporation, there's a hell of a lot of obligations you must meet.
So what's your advice for a small business owner who's listening to this and thinks, oh, my word, I'm not aware of everything. What should I do?
Unfortunately, they have to become aware and do a bit more research and find out about their own particular business, because all the requirements fluctuate and vary. They need to make sure, like taxation's a big one. Now, small business owes the taxman a whopping $50-odd billion. They can't pay it. It's as simple as that. And the taxman is coming after them. Now, you can, if you've got an accountant, and most small business owners I know will have an accountant, and if you're scared yourself, get your accountant, make sure your accountant makes a payment plan. If you ignore the taxman, he will come after you, and the taxman will bankrupt you, guaranteed. And that is no good. So to be a small business owner, there's a lot of compliance. But the good side of business is that is the only thing, given a set of circumstances, where you can create your personal wealth. You can grow your business. You can contribute to the economy in many ways. But you have to be a certain type of person. And before you go into a small business, if it's the first time, you must do your due diligence. You must ask yourself a lot of questions as to your own suitability. Are you cut out to be a small business owner? Because there is a lot of stress in that area, but there's also equally a lot of rewards. So I would not tell a person don't go into small business, but I would ask them that they check to see if they are suitable to be a small business owner. It's like everything else, there are rewards. I mean, life is complicated generally anyhow today, but there's some wonderful opportunities. You can export, you can be creative, you can make things, you can grow things, and you can be your own boss. And that's the wonderful side of being in small business. And don't forget that every big business started as a small business. So the opportunities are there.
That's Anne Nalder, CEO of the Small Business Association of Australia. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow @BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.